The first financial resolution provides for a temporary reduction in VAT on gas and electricity. At present, gas and electricity have a 13.5% VAT rate applied. This will be reduced to 9% VAT from the 1st of May to the 31st of October 2022. The second financial resolution provides for an extension and enhancement of the excise duty decrease on mineral oil taxes that the Government provided for in March. The VAT inclusive 20% reduction in the mineral oil tax rate for petrol and a 15% reduction on auto diesel, with a proportionate 2-cent reduction for marked gas oil, known as green diesel, was due to last until the 31st of August 2022. The cost of this measure was €320 million. The purpose of the current financial resolution is to extend these temporary reductions until budget day, with effect from the 1st of May. The estimated cost of this change is €80 million. In addition, the financial resolution provides that for further VAT inclusive reductions in mineral oil tax of 3 cents per litre on marked gas oil, known as MGO, with effect from the 1st of May until budget day. The estimated cost of this change is €17 million. The Government recognises the impacts of the current energy crisis and understands how it has contributed to a rise in the cost of living. While the energy crisis is driven primarily by global factors, the Government has taken the decision to reduce VAT on gas and electricity to alleviate some of these impacts and to extend the temporary reduction in mineral oil tax. With respect to VAT, Ireland has maintained a historical derogation in respect of the VAT rate on gas and electricity since 1991. This has allowed us to apply a reduced rate of 13.5%, but also prevented us from lowering the VAT rate below 12%. However, following lengthy negotiations, amendments to the VAT Directive were provisionally agreed in December 2021, with final sign-off and amended text at an ECOFIN meeting in April 2022. The new arrangement came into effect on the 5th of April 2022. Under this new agreement, Annex 3 of the VAT Directive has been expanded to include gas and electricity. This means that Ireland can apply a reduced rate of gas of 9% on these products in line with other goods and services to which a reduced rate applies. The Government has made a decision to avail of this flexibility from the 1st of May, the start of the next VAT returns period. The VAT reduction from the 1st of May and the extension of the reduction in mineral oil tax will add to the already substantial support provided by Government to help with the cost of living. In terms of revenue impacts, the 6 months decrease in VAT is estimated to cost €46 million. I will now turn to the amendments to the financial resolution tabled by Sinn Féin. With regard to Deputy Doherty's first 3 amendments, I note the Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 are contingent on Amendment 3. I therefore propose to address all 3 together. The purpose of these amendments is to give effect to the VAT reduction on kerosene, bringing it from 13.5% to 9%. Deputy Doherty provides in his amendment that this amendment would only go ahead if the European Commission confirmed that such a change would not impact on Ireland's historical derogation. As the Deputy will be aware, amendments to the VAT Directive came into effect on the 5th of April 2022. While Annex 3 was expanded to include gas and electricity, it does not include any mention of home heating oil. However, this new arrangement on VAT rates also preserved Ireland's historical derogation in relation to fuel and oil, despite them not being included in Annex 3. It is on this basis that Ireland applies the 13.5% reduced rate of VAT to the supply of fuel and oil for domestic and commercial purposes. The current 13.5% VAT rate applied to energy products is a parked rate and cannot be reduced below the 12%. It should be noted that other Member States must apply the standard rate of VAT to this product. The first issue that arises with Deputy's approach is that lowering VAT rate on kerosene under 12% in itself is a breach of the EU VAT Directive. The Deputy may be aware that Commissioner Jenny Tolley issued a letter to all EU finance ministers in relation to the energy crisis regarding points, responding to points Minister Donoghue and his European counterparts have raised seeking greater flexibility. The Commissioner highlighted the current flexibility provided by the EU directives, including the new agreed amendments to VAT areas. The Commissioner indicated that the Commission does not envisage any further revision of the EU taxation framework to respond to the current crisis. In circumstances where the Commissioner has been clear that he does not envisage further flexibility in relation to VAT being adopted, a deliberate breach of the VAT directive would lead to infringement proceedings. The second issue arising from the Deputy's approach is the suggestion that clarity would be sought from the Commission regarding retaining Ireland's historical derogation on kerosene into the future. There are conditions attached to all historical derogations when it comes to VAT. One of these conditions is that if it is no longer being applied, then it is deemed to be removed and cannot be returned. Another condition is that historical derogation cannot be lower than 12%. So in addition to being in a breach of and leading to infringement, the move of kerosene to 9% by definition removes it from the historical derogation we currently apply. The fourth amendment from Deputy proposes further rate reduction from the 1st of May until budget day. The Deputy seeks to reduce the mineral oil tax rate on petrol and diesel to the minimum rate as prescribed by the Energy Tax Directive and to further reduce the rate on marked gas oil by 2 cents. The amendment also seeks to remove the carbon component of kerosene, reducing the overall rate to 0. The proposed mineral oils tax rate for diesel would not be compliant with the minimum rate set out in the Energy Tax Directive. The combined effect of the measures the Government have already provided mean that the current mineral oil tax rate for diesel, in addition to the diesel rebate scheme, is effectively at the minimum allowable under the Energy Tax Directive. Any further excise direction, as the Deputy is proposing, would bring the effective rate below the minimum possible rate. To apply a mineral oil tax rate of 33% of 33 cents per litre would mean the Government would have to scrap the diesel rebate scheme, which is a targeted support for hauliers and public transport operators. Mineral oil tax on kerosene for home heating has a non-carbon component rate of 0. The carbon component is currently €84.84 per 1,000 litres. The Deputy proposed completely removing this carbon element, thus reducing mineral oil tax to 0. Similarly, the reductions that we are providing for this evening to the rate of mineral oil tax on marked gas oil means that the non-carbon component will also be 0 from the 1st of May. Therefore, this means that the further reduction to mineral oil tax proposed by Deputy Doherty would also involve reducing the carbon component of this fuel. The deputies will be aware that the 2020 programme for government committed to increasing the amount that is charged per tonne of CO2 emissions from fuels to €100 by 2030. The government followed through on this commitment by introducing legislation in the Finance Act 2020 to provide for a 10-year trajectory for carbon tax increases to reach €100 per tonne of CO2 by 2030. This measure is a key pillar underpinning the government's climate action plan to have emissions by 2030 and reach net zero no later than 2050. A further component of the government's carbon tax policy is the hypothecation of revenues raised from this rate increases to fund important just transition measures. It is important to note that a significant proportion of carbon tax revenue is allocated for expenditure on targeted welfare measures and energy efficiency measures, which not only support the most vulnerable households in society, but also in the long term provide support against fuel price impacts, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. And I think we raised €652 million in carbon tax last year, and to seek to reduce this to 0 in certain circumstances would undermine this entire proposal. And I would just want to put on the record that the Sinn Féin pre-budget submission for 2022 included the figure of €650 million to be collected in 2022 as part of their budget submission for 2022. So I'm interested to see is the Deputy now choosing to scrap his own pre-budget submission by the move to reduce carbon tax here now. So if you are proposing to do that, it does mean you're not accepting or standing by your own budget submission that you put to us before the last budget. And we can't have budget submissions which contain elements of collecting carbon tax and then the same party coming in here proposing to remove carbon taxes as if there was no consequences. So in conclusion, the measures will help with the cost of electricity and gas and are one part of the government's response to the energy crisis. Accordingly, I cannot accept the amendments.
Thank you, Minister.